And today I'm going to be doing starting a new series on my channel all about drafting, and I'm dividing this into categories, talking about very specific things in drafting if you're someone who's just getting in to drafting or you just want to hear some different perspectives on drafting. So I thought I wasn't sure what video to kind of do first because I have a couple of ideas, but I figured let's kind of start talking first about like balance in numbers and basically how are you balancing out your draft deck, because the typical draft deck has 40 cards. And you know what? I want to actually first start there about 40. So, and I want to break that down and like how that kind of gets like divided up. People say 40 is kind of your best bet. Now, sometimes what I do is I run 41 cards or 42 cards. Usually not 42, usually it's 41. The reason for this is sometimes I throw in an extra card for sideboard. Now, here's the deal, and here's why people kind of say, well, 40 is the minimum that you like have to run. But here's why people kind of stick to that. Is if you're bringing in more cards, the less likely chance you are to draw this one card that you may need for whatever. So that's kind of like the mentality behind it, is that's why 40 seems to be a really good number, and any more than that, you have less likely odds of drawing whatever card it is that you want to draw, drawing your bombs, drawing your removal, etc. The reason why sometimes, like I said, I do run 41 is I'll slip in an extra card for sideboard. Sometimes I do 41 for an extra land, actually. Sometimes I'm in my main board, it's weird, main board, sideboard, whatever. But like I'll do my main board and I'll throw in an extra one for a land. It just totally depends. So I would really stick to 40. You know what? I would sometimes do 41 again. You're slipping in that extra sideboard card or that extra land, but 40, 41 is really going to be where you want your numbers to be at for that. Now let's talk about the land breakdown. My personal favorite amount of lands to run is 17, baby. You know something? I've played around with 16. I've played around with 18. Something about that 17, it's a lucky number in my book. It just seems to be how it goes. Are you going to get mana screwed in both ways? Are you going to draw too many lands? Are you going to draw too few lands? Absolutely. Now here's where it gets a little interesting. Now, depending on the draft format and depending on how many colors you're running, this number can totally change because you may need to run maybe one or two more lands depending on your mana base if you're running like tri-colored lands or something like that. And it also depends totally on your curve. Now, if you're playing a very aggressive, maybe red-white strategy, something like that, and you're like, I don't want lands, the only max I need is like 3, 16 may be in your favor. I've never really been that adventurous. I do love those aggressive beatdown strategies that kill you on turn 6. Like, I love that. I never feel really comfortable with running 16 lands. For me, 17 has always been the really good thing. But also depending on your curve, if you're running a ton of stuff at like high mana cost, you may want to run 18, and that may be your kind of number. And that may be where, when I talked about running 41 cards in your deck, that may be where that extra slot goes. So it totally depends on your build, but I would just keep that in mind. 17 is going to be kind of your number. Now that the boring part of the lands kind of is out of the way, let's talk about the 20, 23, 24, I guess it would be like 22, 23, 24 cards. What do those cards look like? Now, basically what they say is they say they want like 16 to 18 creatures. So look at it this way. If you're doing let's just stick to, you're running 17 lands in your build and you're running 17 creatures. That's 34 cards total. You have 6 other slots to play around with, which we'll talk about that in a bit. It's a pretty nice even number. Also even numbers to remember, like if you're someone who you want to maintain like a formula, you want to, run a certain amount of cards, that's a really good way of remembering it. 17 lands, 17 creatures. That's a pretty solid thing of thinking about it. And that's something too, what I would say about it is I have a difficult time drafting creatures. It's not because I don't like creatures. It's because I'm someone who's so removal heavy, and I'm someone who I always draft removal that I don't draft enough creatures. So let's talk about a card maybe like Lingering Souls is a really good example. So Lingering Souls, it's 3 mana, and you put 2 1/1 white spirit creature tokens on the field. So you look at that and say, well, it's a sorcery, so does that get counted as my 6 extra cards, or does that get counted as creatures? Well, you see, oh, it's got flashback too. Flashback for 2. Card's great. Cards like that, I'm a huge fan of. I love token generator things. There's something that I'm a huge fan of, period. I love running them in EDH and stuff like that, but I also love running them in draft environments. So that card would be sort of counted as creatures. I would definitely lend themselves into creatures. But, so say you had 15 actual legit creatures and you had a Lingering Souls in your main board. you know, count that in and say I'm technically running 16 cards. You could even bump it up and really up that number because Lingering Souls makes 2 tokens when you ETBs and 2 tokens when you flashback it. So it makes a ton of creatures. That's why the card's like really freaking good. So yeah, that's an interesting sort of thing to think about when you are building your deck. So definitely make sure you have enough creatures, because let me tell you something, those sort of blue decks that run like counter spells and like, you know, stuff like that, really aren't that good. I really would not recommend going that route. I would definitely, if you're going to pick between a removal spell or a counter spell, definitely play the removal spell, and, you know, run enough creatures. Definitely make sure 16's like your bare bones, like make sure you have that creatures. So now let's talk about those extra cards. This is where it gets really interesting. As I said, removal, removal, removal. You need removal. Whether it's like a Path to Exile, whether it's like a 5 mana that does 5 burn thing to your opponent's creature, regardless, whatever it is, you need removal. And that's something that you really need to prioritize in your draft pool. Yes, creatures, you need them. And sometimes specialty lands, depending on the environment, where there are specialty lands like pseudo fetch lands, you know, things like Evolving Wilds, you know, things like that. And like tri-lands if you're in an environment where they run multiple colors. First off, removal, board wipes are like #1 priority for those 6 or so extra cards in your deck. It could be less, it could be like 5, could be, you know, yeah, it could be like about 5. I would do 17 lands, 17 creatures, and like a couple removal spells. I don't know, 3 if you can get them. It totally depends on the environment, depends on how many, you know, removal spells are floating around, which there's probably going to be a lot. Well, not like a lot, but, you know, you need to prioritize them and you need to pick them up. Also board wipes too. If there are board wipes, you just need to snag that. I don't even care if it's a card that's like Biting Rain that does like 3 damage to each creature. I don't care. You need board wipes. You need things like that. The second, I would say, priority are really like Mana Ramp and Mana Dorks, and those can be creatures as well, which does, you know, you can add those into your creature list. But like, you know, those not really a huge priority on my boat. You need removal more than anything. But, you know, sometimes you do need like 1 card in there that's going to help you get your colors, something like Cultivate, you know, whatever. Then you've got like pump spells. I'm not really a huge fan of pump spells. Sometimes I like things that buff your whole team. They like give your team +1/+1, like Zealous Persecution card's great. Give your team +1/+1, your opponent's team -1/-1. Things like that are really good. But that whole thing, I'm not really a huge fan of like pump creature spells, like 1 creature. It's got to be pretty good in my opinion. Then you got like enchantments and like artifacts. I've said this before so many times. Those cards have to be really good to impress me. Now, enchantments a lot of times really bog you down, and I would not recommend picking a lot of them up. Like I said, you really want this spot to be held at, you know, things that remove your opponent's creatures and, you know, things that can help your board out. I just don't really like enchantments. I really don't like them. I would definitely try to avoid that and stay away from that. As much as like you possibly can. Unless it's an enchantment that's like really, really good, which there are some that are really good, some that even remove your creatures, you know, from your opponent's board. So, you know, it just totally depends, you know, but a lot of times I would just really try to avoid them. So yeah, that was it. Kind of like recap, I would say, sort of thing is, you know, 40 cards, sometimes 41. 17 of those should be lands, around 16 to 18 creatures, totally depending on your build. Are you trying to kill your opponent on turn 1, not turn 1, that's not that fast. Are you trying to kill him on turn 6 or turn 14? Like, it totally depends. And all your extra stuff, you know, those extra slots, removal, can't say enough good things about that. And then on the lower totem pole, you know, Mana Ramp, pretty important. You can sneak in a card here or there, whatever for it. Any sort of like pump spells, artifacts, enchantments, totally depends on what they are, but, you know, whatever. And sometimes too, like, artifacts can be, you know, included in your like Mana Ramp, like cards that, you know, you add 1 colorless to your pool and then you sack it to draw a card or like something like that. So yeah. Yeah, guys, that was it. That was it for talking about balancing out your sort of numbers in a draft sort of environment. And this is what I would say really helped me maintain, you know, a good sort of thing. And I think too, like when you have like your set of cards, You know, what you'll notice a lot of times is people will look at the cards that they draft, which I do all the time, and you can divide them by color if that helps you, or you can divide it by like creatures, you know, specialty lands, you know, like removal spells. You know, I think that's a good way too to organize your sort of thing when you have all your cards. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got. So I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.